it's Krista. So what I want to make for you today, because one of the keys to success when you're focusing on real food and real ingredients is quick and easy. I mean, let's be honest, it has to be quick and easy. So what we're going to do is the fire roasted sloppy joes. So, you know, growing up, my mom never cooked with a butternut squash. She never cooked with a spaghetti squash. And when she would make sloppy joes, they would have barbecue sauce and ketchup and brown sugar in them, or maybe the can of manwich. And so we're gonna do sloppy joes that have veggies in it. And what actually provides the sweetness is a butternut squash. But you could also use a sweet potato. And the great thing is we're gonna buzz up all the veggies in the Ninja so that there's less chopping, and anybody loves that because this meal will come together in about 20 minutes. So the first thing that we're gonna do, so in the Ninja, you're gonna take half an onion and just cut it in large chunks, but then we're gonna take a green bell pepper. Now, I used to not really think it was that big a deal to show people how to cut a bell pepper, and then I watched my father-in-law stand there watching me cut a bell pepper with his mouth open, and I thought, maybe this is a big deal. So I'm gonna show you how I cut a bell pepper. Everybody probably has their own way. I don't like the seeds flying all over the kitchen. So what I do is I cut off the top, and then of course you can easily pop out the stem. And then for the Ninja, we would just chop this into large chunks. So then I stand this up, tap it a little bit, and then I just cut around, kind of curving your knife as you get to the bottom, just so you get as much of the bell pepper as possible. So then you're left with that, no seeds flying anywhere. And then just for the Ninja, chop it up into large chunks. And we would throw, so what I did is I threw the half an onion and the bell pepper in here. And then, so for the butternut squash. Now, so I had no idea how to cut this, anything about it. But with the butternut squash, your seeds are only right here. So what I do first, and you need a good knife to cut this, you actually can put a butternut squash in the microwave for about 30 seconds to soften it up if you feel like that's necessary. But first I cut off the ends. So then you've got something that'll stand up, just knife safety. Now I'm gonna cut it right here, kind of at the base of the neck of it, where it starts to curve. Now see, look, I haven't even gotten to the seeds yet. So then I take this section. This recipe only calls for a cup. And so I just take my knife and cut the skin off. Now, if you have a Rockstar vegetable peeler, you can also use a vegetable peeler. I just personally think it's easy to use the chef's knife. And then, now for this recipe, you don't really have to get it into small chunks or dice it up real fine. But then I would, move these out of the way, then I would just slice it up and dice it up. Now, I have to tell you a funny story. When we first started making these sloppy joes, we were actually at the Y over the lunch hour, and we were serving up samples of the sloppy joes, and there was a lady who came up and asked what was in the sloppy joes. And we said, well, there's butternut squash, and there's bell pepper and onion, and she goes, well, I can't have those. I'm allergic to nuts. We were like, oh, I guess what you don't know, you don't know. I mean, I didn't know what a butternut squash was. She also said, I don't go in the produce section, because we said, oh, no, butternut squash. She goes, oh, no, I don't go in the produce section. I thought, you probably should. So it was just pretty funny. So once you get a cup of this, you know, diced up or chunked up, you're going to throw it in the Ninja. Now, I do want to show you, what do you do with this other half? So I like to cut it in half first. So then you're left with the seeds in here. Just take a spoon and you're just gonna scrape it out, kind of holding it over your cutting board. It's so much easier to do than a pumpkin. I mean, this is not, it's not super slimy. The seeds come out pretty easily. Then you would just take the rest, just like you did the other part, and cut your skin off. And then you would just dice it up like you would. Now, once we get all the veggies in here, just pulse it up. So everything, this is the great thing, two great things. The fact that they're diced up really fine. I've even had people say, can I mutilate the vegetables for my picky eaters? Absolutely, picky eaters, kids, spouses. So one, it actually chops it up really fine. So that does two things. It hides the vegetables, but it also makes it cook really fast. So then we're gonna go over here to the pot. Now, so what we did is we added a tablespoon of oil and our veggies from the Ninja. sauteed them for just a couple, like 3 to 5 minutes. Then we added our ground beef and we browned the beef until it is nice and brown, no longer pink, and cooked through. And so then when we get to this point, we're gonna add our seasonings. So this is 1.5 teaspoons of oregano, garlic powder, 1/8 teaspoon of cinnamon, only 2 teaspoons of coconut sugar. So that's all the sweetness that we've got in here. And 1/4 teaspoon to 1/2 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. So we're gonna dump that in and stir it up just till all the seasonings get combined. Then we're gonna take a can of fire roasted diced tomatoes. Now fire roasted only because they taste, I mean, you know, it's got a lot of flavor, it tastes better. And you can also use ground turkey for this. When you use lean ground beef, you don't really have to worry about draining the grease, because if you're using lean, like probably either 85-15 or 90-10, you're not gonna have a lot of grease. So once you get the tomatoes in there, the last thing we're gonna add is 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire. So you're just gonna pop that in. And then really this only has to simmer maybe 3 more minutes, 3 to 5 more minutes. And so just get everything mixed up. It's fantastic leftover and it freezes great. So we're gonna let that simmer for just a few more minutes. Now, I know you're thinking, you know, typical sloppy joes, what we would serve that with is, let's get these out of the way. What you would serve that with is a bun, which of course most people would think, let's serve sloppy joes with a bun. We're actually gonna put it on top of spaghetti squash. And it's just a great option to get another vegetable in. It makes it different. You know, the key with spaghetti squash does not have a lot of flavor. I mean, it's pretty neutral. And so you can definitely just add garlic, olive oil, salt and pepper, but it's really good if you're adding something that's got a lot of flavor on top of it, like chili or sloppy joes. I have people come to me and say, oh, I just put marinara sauce on it, which is great, but they're like, it was just okay. It didn't wow me. And so you really need something with some flavor. Now, again, another vegetable that we had no idea what to do with. So you do have to get, you have to cook the spaghetti squash, but you can cook it you can either cook it in the oven, you can cook it in the microwave. So I cooked it one time without taking the seeds out, and I swore I would never do that again. So if you were to cook a spaghetti squash this size in the oven, about 350 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes. But I personally like cooking it in the microwave because it's quick and easy. And so you've probably seen some people cook it whole. They'll just cut slits in it and they'll just cook it just like that in the microwave or the oven. But like I said, I like taking the seeds out. So I actually also like cutting it in half like this. So one time I was in Michigan working with Zanya and we were doing a video, how to do spaghetti squash. And so I went to cut it like this. And she said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm cutting the spaghetti squash. She said, well, you're supposed to cut it lengthwise. I said, well, who says? And it turns out, we Googled it, you can cut it any way you want. I just like cutting it in half like this because you don't have the stem to deal with. So you do need, again, a good knife. And so we're gonna cut it in half and not lose it or knock an inch over. So then, once you get inside the spaghetti squash, so here's the seeds. So you're gonna just scoop it, just like you would, kind of the butternut squash. And then, it's really easy to tell what part is supposed to come out. So then, once you get the seeds out, you're left with that. Now what you can do is you can put it cut side down on a baking sheet, cut side up on a baking sheet, and put it in the oven. I always tell people don't go throwing a half a stick of butter in there. You don't need to do that. But when we cook it, we like to put it cut side down in like an 8x8 and then add 1/4 cup of water and 7 minutes, just like this. 7 minutes is ideal in our microwave. And so once you pull it out, this is what it looks like. So it's gonna be crazy hot. You can overcook a spaghetti squash. So I would start with 7 minutes and you can always add more time, especially if it's a little bit bigger, maybe add another minute. But you'll know that it's done when you take your fork and you push in the bottom or poke the bottom of it and it's tender, then you know it's done. And so then all you have to do is start shredding it and it turns to noodles, just like that. And it's pretty cool, actually. You should see kids' faces when I do this demo. Their mouths are open and they're freaking out and they can't believe that a vegetable just turned into noodles. So you just basically keep scraping until you can't scrape anymore. And it is going to astonish you how much spaghetti squash noodles you get out of even just 1/2 of a spaghetti squash. Now they're gonna have kind of like a crisp, tender consistency to them. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take our sloppy joes and we are going to take a plate and we're going to scoop it up just like this. And so instead of a bun, you have kind of a little bed of vegetable. And then we're gonna put the sloppy joes on top and voila, dinner. So then quick and easy, loaded with veggies, loaded with flavor, and it's the fire roasted sloppy joes. I hope you enjoy. Thanks.